Thank you all very much for joining me for this webinar on Lewa Wilderness. Just some housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so if you need to leave halfway through or if you'd like to share it with your teams, you can find it in on our YouTube channel. But I will also send it out in a follow-up newsletter um, with all the sales and marketing collateral that you need to sell Lewa Wilderness. Um, We will also have some time at the end for questions. So if anything comes to mind throughout the presentation or at the end, please do just pop it into the Q&A box and I will be able to answer it live. So we'll get started. So Lewa Wilderness, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the lodge, but the lodge is a family-owned and run property, and it was one of the first in Kenya to start hosting guests. So it's owned by the Craig family. Here you will see Miranda, Will, Karamushu, the general manager, Emma, and then their son Joss. And so the Craig family have been on this land for over a generation, and the they have a real heritage and legacy at Lewa. And the Lewa Conservancy, as we know today, um, is as renowned due to their family's contribution to conservation. They originally came to Kenya cattle ranching, and then eventually they uh, transformed then the land into a rhino sanctuary with the help of a lady called Anna Mertz. Um, so, for those of you who aren't so familiar with Kenya or are new to selling the destination, the Lewa Conservancy and the lodge itself is located on the Laikipia Plateau. So, whilst on the map it looks like it's central Kenya, in terms of the safari circuit, we refer to it as Northern Kenya, and it really is a truly beautiful area. And I always, advise agents to incorporate it into any Kenya itinerary. It's a very different experience to what you would have in the Masai Mara, and it combines really nicely in terms of the experiences and also the landscape. It's really beautiful. You have the backdrop of Mount Kenya from Lewa. You also are surrounded by the Barana Hills. So it really is just a breathtaking area. So, Laikipia itself is made up of different conservancies. So, as I said, the experience here is much more immersive. It's all about getting out of the vehicle and experiencing the bush. From a different perspective, whether it be on foot, on horseback. We even have camels at Lewa. So, real variety in what you can do here. And as you can see, the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy itself is just on that eastern edge of the plateau. So the conservancy is a 64,000 acre conservancy. And as you can see on the map here, there are only 5 lodges on the conservancy. So the experience is very private, it's very exclusive. Um, yeah, it's truly, a remarkable de safari destination. It's Big Five game viewing and very strict in terms of vehicles per sighting. We will only have a maximum 3 vehicles at any sighting, but in most cases you don't even see that. So in terms of access to the conservancy and to the lodge itself, if guests are to drive, it's about a 5 hour drive from Nairobi. However, most of our guests do fly in, and that is to the Lewa Downs Airport or airstrip, and that's about a 20 minute drive, 20 minute drive to the lodge. Another very important note about the Lewa Conservancy is that we are renowned for our rhino conservation. So we have approximately 260 black and white rhino across the Lewa and Borana landscape. So if you have guests who want to see rhino, I always recommend incorporating Lewa into the itinerary. It's very difficult to see rhino in the Mara, and you can say it will be a guaranteed sighting. Last time I was there in March, hosting a fam trip last year, we saw 3 rhino just on our way back to the lodge. Um, so it really is a very special place. Um, so in terms of the accommodation and configuration, we'll be talking about 2 products, Lewa Wilderness Lodge itself, which is 9 individual cottages. And then we now also have Private Wilderness, which is our exclusive use lodge, which opened in 2024. And that is 5 cottages and accommodates a maximum of 10 people. So this is the lodge itself. And as I said, it is the family home of the Craig family. Will and Emma, they still live here. So it's very likely that your guests may, bump into them when they are staying here. And because of that, it really has this beautiful home from home atmosphere. So this veranda is where most guests will meet for afternoon tea and have their and go out on their afternoon activity. And then when you walk down then through the gardens, you then arrive to our dining area. The dining area is truly one of the most scenic locations on the property. You're looking out over the hills and it's just so serene. Dining at Lewa is a communal setup and it's hosted. And we find that a lot of our guests do like that. It's an amazing conservancy with lots of different experiences. So guests often like to, talk to other guests about their day and get ideas. But of course, if you have guests who want a more private experience, we can of course do a private setup, or we can some some guests also like to eat at their cottage on their veranda. So it's all possible. This is our lounge and bar. Again, this is a kind of the heart of the lodge, where people kind of gather before dinner or after dinner for a drink. We have also renovated and changed the kind of decking around the bar area. So this is a really beautiful space to relax. Also amazing for a sundowner around this area. So as you can see, there's lots of really nice space around the lodge as well for people to just break away and enjoy the surrounds that they're in. We have also added a kind of boma style area to the lodge. So this now allows us to do a campfire setup. And as I said, this is one of the private dining experiences we can now offer. So it's a really beautiful addition to the lodge. So in terms of the accommodation itself, the accommodation at the main lodge is split into hillside cottages and garden cottages. So this just gives you an idea of the lodge layout. The garden cottages, these are closest to the main area. And then, as the name suggests, the hillside cottages then are dotted along the hillside, overlooking the valley. So you have really beautiful views from these cottages. So this is a kind of typical hillside cottage. Um, the rooms themselves, we can do configurations, really matching any client needs. So do check in with the reservations team if you have families or multi-generational stays. They work really well for us. The hillside cottages, I think, are best for couples and for families with older children, purely as, they are dotted along the hillside. They're farther from the main area, and some of the hillside cottages also have verandas that have, I suppose, steep drops from the veranda. So I suppose parents with younger children may not be feel as comfortable. But as I said, we have refreshed some of the cottages when we closed. So this is just a kind of a new image that we have, and we will be sending out new images soon. But I really love the hillside cottages. You have such an amazing view out over the plains. And then we have the 2-bedroom garden cottages. So these are really amazing for multi-generational families or larger families. You have two very spacious ensuite bathrooms, and then you have a lounge in between. So as I said, great for multi-gens, also for people who want to be closer to the main area, just if it makes them feel more comfortable, and great for smaller children as well. As you can see, you've got the lawns right in front of the gardens there, so really safe for kind of kids to play at their own will. This is the lounge in between the two rooms. Again, we have refreshed this lounge as well, and we'll be in these cottages, and we'll be sending out those new images when they come. But it just gives you an idea of how much space you get with these garden cottages. And just a note, we will never mix, two groups that don't know each other in these cottages. They are sold as one unit. And then this is just an example of some of the other facilities we have on the lodge. As I said, there is so much to do on the Conservancy in terms of experiences, but it is also nice to have these extra facilities just for guests to enjoy the surrounds. Um, Another point I was going to make was just in terms of average length of stay. I never recommend anything less than 3 or 4 nights for this area, just because there is so much to do on the Conservancy. And as I said, around the lodge itself, you really need at least 3 nights to kind of take advantage of the area that you're in. Um, and I'll talk a bit more about the experiences as we go on. But as I said, we now also have our exclusive use lodge, Private Wilderness. So Lewa Wilderness has been, an amazing place for families, and really well renowned for that. So in 2024, we decided to open an exclusive use lodge to really accommodate those families who want their own kind of personal space. So in terms of the design, it's very similar to to the original lodge. Just some of the interiors are that bit more elevated. But what's beautiful is, like most of the lodge itself, a lot of the furniture was made on site in our wood workshop, um, and just a really kind of beautiful family space. So this is an open fronted mess area. We have a private dining area and pool and gardens. So guests will be completely hosted here. And we have 5 identical cottages. So these can be double or twin configuration, and will accommodate a maximum of 10 at this private wilderness. All of the rooms also have bathtubs and a really beautiful view overlooking the plains. And we do also have a guide room here, if you have a group that are being led by a guide. So it works really well for that also. Um, we don't take children under the age of 6 here, which is just one point to note. Um, and yeah, moving on to the activities. As I said, we are renowned for our rhino sightings. So you can, confidently sell Lewa as a Big Five reserve. Um, Being on a conservancy, we do have that bit more variety with our activities. So we can do game drives morning, afternoon, and night. As I said, walking safaris is an amazing way to explore the conservancy. Albeit you may not get a sighting like this one. Um, and horse riding as well. So we are the only lodge on the Conservancy that have stables, and the stables are a very short 5 minute walk away from the lodge. So we will take all levels of experience. For beginners, we tend to do kind of rides around the plains where you get really close to zebra, impala, even giraffe. And then for more experienced riders, we can organise kind of full day out rides where you go out around the Conservancy and get closer to that big game. Often what we try to do with guests in this sense is, especially if they are new to riding, is we will kind of surprise them with a bush breakfast setup. And then particularly if they're children, if there's children and the guests want to do it, they might take the camels back to the lodge then after breakfast. So that's a really nice morning activity that I recommend doing. And then our shamba. So this is a really amazing part of the lodge. And it's really quite amazing to see in the dry season, when the land around us is very dry and dusty, the shamba remains very lush and green and supports a lot of the dining that we do at the lodge. So I always recommend for our guests to go down and explore the shamba, and we can now also offer a really cool um, Shamba lunch. So this is an 8 course tasting menu, and it is everything that the chefs and the gardeners pick that day. So really healthy, really delicious tasting menu. And this whole area, there's a lot to see and do here. So we can show guests where we have our tilapia pond, our wood workshop. As I said, it supplies a lot of the furniture and the ornaments that you see at the lodge. We also have we can show guests where we make our own goat's cheese. So we try to be as self-sustaining as possible. And guests really do love to see it. So what I recommend that agents do is that they incorporate the price of the Shamba lunch into their itinerary. That way, when guests go down to see it, you can almost do it as a surprise, whereby they're going down for a tour of the Shamba and then they have this amazing lunch set up waiting for them. So this video is a little out of date now, as we have also just built our new Shamba kitchen. So this is down at the garden now, and it just allows us that bit more flexibility to do our Shamba lunch despite whatever weather we're given that day. So it's been a real hit, and guests do really love this element. Um, Obviously, conservation is integral to the Conservancy and to the lodge. And so we do recommend guests to go down and see the Conservancy headquarters if they have time. Best to book one of these activities in advance, but it really is amazing. You go down, you meet the canine unit team, you meet the rangers, and you see the really sophisticated tracking systems that they have at the Conservancy for monitoring rhino and any other wildlife that they are tracking at that time. Fly camping is another really popular addition to staying at the lodge. So again, it's for those people who just want to kind of have that one night under the stars. So it's an additional $190 per person. But it really is a fantastic experience if you have guests who want to do it. And if you have keen riders, they can ride out to their fly camp. That's a really popular one. Have their meal there, their diners, and then ride back to the lodge for breakfast in the morning. And then, of course, if they're not riding, they can go out to the fly camp after dinner. Um, so yeah, a really cool activity. Just some other activities that we can offer outside of the Conservancy. We can do a Maasai a village visit to Ilingwesi, and then Ngeri Dairy Forest visit, which I really recommend if you are adventurous and you want to see a different side of the Conservancy. It is a forest conservancy, so it's about an hour and a half drive from Lewa Wilderness. When you get to the conservancy, you meet your ranger, and you hike through the forest. It's really fascinating. And if it is the dry season, you can actually jump into the plunge pools that you see here, albeit not as high as this. And it's really fantastic experience, albeit very, very cold water. And then just touching on Air Wilderness. Air Wilderness is our sister company. So we do have an airstrip at the lodge, and this is used for our scenic flights. And in partnership with Scenic Wilderness, we do offer shared charters or private charters to the lodge. This works really well if you want to combine Lewa with the Mara, particularly if you want the first stop to be the Mara. So I've done this on a farm trip twice with agents, and they really like the way the itinerary is set. So we visit the Mara first, and then we get the shared charter with Scenic Wilderness to Lewa. So it's a really nice way of combining the itinerary without having to route guests back through Nairobi. The plane itself is super comfortable, as you can see on the images here. They quite literally roll out the red carpet for you as you arrive. Um, and I think that is it. So this just gives you an idea of our seasons and our rates. Um, I will send this out in the follow-up just so you don't have to take it all in now. And we do also have our 2027 rates released. So I will send them out with the follow-up newsletter also. Um, And that is just our peak season rate. So our peak season runs from the 1st of July to the 15th December or September, and then our festive season then. And I believe that is it.